Here we go. I think we are ready. Hello. A lot of participants are just here. That's fine. My name is Sibylle Moll, Head of Cybersecurity Propositions at Demovo. A warm welcome to you for the webinar series NIS2 Compliance, how to prepare your organization in 90 days. Today we start with the first out of 3 sprints, or Andrew would say buckets, that will enable you and your organization to meet the requirements of NIS2 directive in a very structured, feasible, and targeted way. And in our today's bucket, we will focus on security policies, cybersecurity hygiene and training, and regular assessments. And we, Demovo, as an 360-degree ICT system integrator, we want you empowered to really meet the NIS2 requirements. And therefore, I'm very delighted to introduce Andrew Hay, CISO at Demovo and very well experienced cybersecurity expert. And he will lead us and you through the next 30 minutes. And as always, we prefer having an interactive session, so therefore, please submit your questions in the Q&A tab, and at the end, we will discuss it. And so therefore, I hand over to Andrew. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Sibylle. Hello, thank you for joining me on this webinar. Again, my name's Andrew Hay, and just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover today. So Sibylle did mention it. I'm going to do just a brief introduction to myself so that you know who I am, what I've done. Then we're going to go into the system that we've really devised that we can help organizations and individuals get ready for NIS2 using, it's not a very fancy or I guess advanced method in terms of an analogy, but we've bucketed things into 3 different buckets so that it's manageable. And the analogy is really that if you're going to a well to fill up with water, you can only fit so much water into a single bucket. So you bring that bucket back, you empty the bucket, and then you go back for more. So it's a manageable load of water, just like we want to have a manageable load of tasks to get you ready for NIS2. So security policies, basic hygiene and training, and regular assessments are what we're going to cover in this webinar. And I will explain this in depth a little bit in a few slides here, but just a little bit about me. I am the CISO here at Demovo. As you can tell, I am not German, but I am Canadian. So I've been the CISO since November of this past year. Before that, I was the Chief Operating Officer at Laras, which is a Demovo company. I've been a co-founder and CTO, CISO. I've run research at OpenDNS, which is now Cisco. I've been an industry analyst. I've also been an information security officer at a bank in Bermuda and a university in Western Canada. I am a very infrequent blogger. I should be blogging more. I've written 4 books that you have probably never read, but that's okay. That only upsets my mother to know that. And I am a internationally ranked competitive powerlifter and a internationally qualified rugby coach. So that's what I do to keep myself sane when I'm not talking or doing security. So just a little bit of an introduction, and I want to preface this by saying this is not a webinar to explain what NIS2 is. There are thousands of webinars out there. This is how to address the challenges of NIS2. So what we've most commonly, you'll see these areas bucketed or grouped into 3 distinct categories. So you'll see cybersecurity governance, which is your information security management, awareness and training, cybersecurity management and compliance. Then you will get another one, which is more detection and response. So how you find that that there is some sort of attack or anomaly on your network, how to report it, how to handle it, and then how to make sure your business can withstand some type of attack or many types of attacks. And then finally, your infrastructure and application security. So this is your network security, how you're developing internal tools or external tools for customer consumption, how you are ascribing access and controls to individuals within the organization, and then the management of your supply chain, so your third-party suppliers and the risk management. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier that we're talking about buckets, and the bucket analogy of you can only carry so much. And because we are really working towards that October 17th date, the best way to do this is to, one, start now, and two, carve the NIS2 challenges or end goal into 3 distinct buckets so that you can actually address them accordingly without having to, and I apologize for the analogy of boiling the ocean, but it really does apply here because there's a lot to do in a short period of time, and the only way you're going to be able to manage this properly is to take bite-sized chunks of the work ahead of you. So the first bucket, the first 30 days, which is what we're going to be covering today, followed by the second bucket, which is the next 30 days of work, and then the final bucket, which is the final 30 days. So really, what we want to do is help you get, using this bucket approach, your plans in order to be aligned with NIS2. So the first bucket is security policies, basic security hygiene and training. We lump those together, and regular assessments. So what I want you to take away from this is a method in the first 30 days on how to discover what gaps you may have in your security policies and program, identify really what security controls, and these are both technical security controls as well as documentation-based security controls, and then the training opportunities associated with them. And then finally, start looking at who you could bring in to perform a third-party assessment of your infrastructure security. And I will say that, you may think, okay, this is a lot to cover in 30 days, but I'm going to show you that it can be easily addressed within 30 days. So you should not be concerned. Don't tune out. This is very approachable and easy to accomplish. So if we take a look at the security policies first. So if your organization has been around for a while, is of a certain size, you likely have an information security management system, an information security program in place. You may be ISO 27001 certified. You may have a NIST cybersecurity framework based security program, but what you need to have, even if you have this in place, there are certain things that may or may not map to NIS2, and you need to know what in your group of policies is applicable specifically for NIS2 and what you may need to add in order to align properly with NIS2. So just overview of security policy, it's really the set of rules, guidelines, and practices that govern the protection of the organization. And I can't stress this enough, the security policies have to map to a business need. Otherwise, it's just words on paper that someone has signed off on. Policies need to align with a business need And then any tools that you purchase or programs that you bring on for security have to align with a policy. So the policy document is essentially the marching orders for the organization's security program. So as you can see, this list on the right-hand side, this is a typical listing of ISO 27001 policies that you should have. Now, I've seen these as individual policies, which I am a fan of having individual policies, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I've also seen these completely mashed into one huge document, multi-page document that no one could ever hope to read, because it's hard enough to get people to read and follow 25 policies. Try having 25 policies crammed into one document. That piece of paper is never going to get read. So what do we need for NIS2? Well, if we take those ISO policies and dump them into the categories that we talked about before, cybersecurity governance, detection and response, and infrastructure and application security, we really go from 25 to 14. So I don't know about you, but 14 sounds far more manageable than 25. And that's not to say that the other policies are not needed for your security program, but right now we are focusing on how we align with NIS2. So we are talking about 14 policies that we need to have in place in order to align with NIS2. And just rehashing a little bit. So the biggest challenge of having a one document master information security policy that has absolutely everything in it, an information security policy is designed to be adopted by the business, and as such requires regular review, regular updates, and sign off by stakeholders on the executive team. If you make changes to anything in that master document, you are telling the executive team that they now have to review an entire multi-page document and sign off. You can't really just point them at the changes or the delta between the previous and the new, because from a legal standpoint, they have to understand exactly what has changed and what the current policy reads as. And if you are making a small change in a huge multi-page document, then that is a lot of time and effort that the executive team now has to spend on these policies. Whereas if you have individual policies, you could make minor changes to a 1 or 2 page document that state the policy for a particular area, such as access control, and it becomes much more consumable by the executive team. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to save you a lot of time and your executive team a lot of time, because I think 90% of executive time is spent in meetings anyway. The rest is reviewing things, and you're trying to make it easier for them to spend that 10% time to get what you need back for the security program. Now, how do we create a policy? So if you do not have policies, there's really 3 main ways that over the course of my career, I found that you can create these policies. One is you can scour the internet for someone else's templates, or back when I worked at a university 15, almost 20 years ago, a lot of universities would publish their information security policies online. And because I was working for a university and they were a university, I did not have problems taking their policies and reworking them for my organization. The problem is that it was a lot of work to tune someone else's policy to what I needed. It was free. They were available to me, but they didn't necessarily cover everything I needed them to cover, or they covered way more than my personal infrastructure had. at my smaller university. It was an 8,000 employee or 8,000 student university, 2,000 employees. So it was much smaller than a massive university, which a lot of these policies are written for. The SANS Institute has kindly put up free policies and templates that anyone can use, but again, they may not be applicable. And if you've not written policies or you have no policies, you're starting at zero, and now you have to understand all of these policies and rework them to the organization. So it could be a lot of work depending on your comfort level. There's also a number of online SaaS-based applications that will create policies for you based on a series of questions and answers that you provide. They can be tailored to your organization, but they may not really align with exactly what you need, because these applications are built to be as broad and encompassing as possible so that they are, I guess, more applicable to every potential customer in their target area. So they may not have, if you're a university or if you're in manufacturing or you're a telecommunications company, they may not have specific policies and wording tailored to your organization. The platforms are also relatively expensive because they've done a lot of this work for you. So they have to recoup that cost somehow and make money and stay in business. So there is a lot of money in operating one of these application companies, and you may be forced to pay a lot of money for the management features and functionality that they provide you. One of the more common ways to get security policies written is through consultative services. So virtual CISOs or organizations that have written policies for other organizations over the years. They can be tailored for your business, your needs, your size, your areas of business. You get to define the scope. That is probably the biggest pro that I can think of, is that you tell them what needs to be encompassed by the security program and the policies that you're writing, and you get a tailored security program for your organization, for your business units, and it's one of the best ways to get it's a good balance between the free and the online platforms. You do have to be careful. The firm that you're working with may not have the experience in your specific industry, so you need to really check their case studies, check with whom they've worked, ask for references, and depending on the time of year, it may be difficult to get those consultants that you need to complete things in your timeline. So moving on to basic hygiene and training. So when I say hygiene, this has been a word that has been used a lot over the years when it comes to cybersecurity, and it's really just cleaning up your own house or your own organization. So you want to make sure that the basics are covered and that you have a good foundation for your organization's security. So if we have our policies that we've identified. Now we have to map technical controls to enforce what we want to have done within that policy, because we have a policy that says passwords must be changed every 45 days or every 180 days. Well, you could manually do that by logging into Active Directory, for example, and changing everyone's password. But that doesn't scale well to a large organization. So there are tools that help you manage those large tasks across a large organization. So if we look at the detection and response category, for example, we've got the asset management policy, business continuity policy, backup policy, logging and monitoring policy, malware and antivirus policy. So those are just the policies that we care about. So there is a multitude of tools that could satisfy the requirements based on how you've defined them within your policy. Some examples could include asset management software. for the asset management policy. So we need to track every single piece of software, every single piece of hardware that we bring into the organization. Do we put it in a spreadsheet? You can. Does that scale well for the long term? Probably not. I think every organization's been there at some point, but at some point you need to grow and have an asset tracking, asset management database, and there's software out there to help you with this. So why reinvent the wheel? Business continuity policy, one component would be, where are we storing our data? Are we storing in the cloud? Do we have a data array of hard drives that we're storing all our data? Is it on-site? Is it off-site? So where are we storing the data? That data storage medium needs to be defined and acquired to support the needs of that policy. Backup policy. Do we have backup software that comes with our laptops? Do we have to buy something else? Do we, again, where do we store it? Is it going on the data storage medium that we talked about in the business continuity policy? Logging and monitoring policy. So I've been around the SIM and log management space for 20 plus years. Now I feel really old. And whenever these policies, or whenever these frameworks are talking about logging and monitoring, they're talking about SIM, they're talking about log management, and not just the collection of the information, but the procedures in reviewing what is happening and what is going into your data repository or data lake. That's the new thing. It's like, oh, we'll just throw all of our logs into a data lake. Well, you still need to do something with them. That's a whole other webinar series. Malware and antivirus. Okay, well, we have a policy. It's in the name. We probably need some sort of endpoint product that is going to support malware and antivirus, or prevent, I guess not support, prevent malware and antivirus from happening, from spreading. And that is your endpoint detection and response, your just traditional antivirus applications. It really depends on what tools you have available and what objectives you're looking to solve within your policy for the business. Now, when it comes to policies and controls, it's great to have documentation. You know, I've been an engineering manager. Documentation is key, but we need to have training on the tools that we have purchased or we've deployed to support the policies that we have written, which also require training. So if you train your employees, it ensures that everyone knows what the business wants to protect and the associated approved plans for the business as it relates to security. So if you train your employees on the policies, they'll understand what is required of them, what the business is expecting. If you train the employees on the tools, they will know how to configure them, how to respond to them, how to wield those tools to make their jobs easier to defend the organization. But you also have to think about what happens if those tools fail. What if there is an exception needed in the policy? So Mike Tyson has a great quote, and I use this all the time. So Mike Tyson, the American former heavyweight champion of the world, said that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And it is true. If you've ever been in a fight and you get punched, there's that moment where you have to decide, if you can, what to do next. Do you defend yourself? Do you throw a punch back? You need to know what your next step is if everything does not go according to plan. Now, regular assessments. We have these policies and the gaps identified. We now need to have someone come in and help us baseline where we are from a attackable surface area, from an insider threat, from an external entity. And what we need to do is schedule this, because you need to evaluate this company that you work with, the individuals that you work with. you don't want to just go for the least experienced, cheapest option, because you will get what you pay for. You, as a CISO, I want to know what potential areas of exposure exist in the business that are going to keep me up at night and that is going to make my team work really, really hard to address, especially with that deadline looming. So pick your partner of choice, or have a short list of partners, and then start scheduling the testing before October. And I will tell you that you don't need to address every single finding, but you should have a plan over the course of the next year to address those findings. And as part of NIS2, you are showing continuous improvement and a plan, and that you did this baseline assessment. So if you schedule annual assessments, you can then measure how successful your organization is in mitigating these findings. So assessment means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It could be vulnerability scan, could be penetration test, could be an application security test, physical security test, or an IT gap assessment. But to help you out here, we are talking about the vulnerability scan and penetration testing. That is what we mean for this 30-day bucket. That's not to say the others are not important, but as it relates to NIS2 in this 30-day bucket, and we only have so much time and so many resources, this is what we want to focus on for the 30-day bucket and for this bucket of buckets to get us through to the end of the year. So given the amount of time to get ready, you should focus on your core infrastructure, inside and outside, get a good solid baseline, and it will shine light on gaps that you didn't know existed or that you suspected may have existed. It will also show things that you didn't really plan on either fixing, legacy hardware, legacy software, and just how susceptible they would be to an attack and how detrimental that could be to your organization. So I can give you 3 quick and easy tips when you're scheduling a penetration test so that it doesn't feel like you're trying to test absolutely everything. So know what you want tested. Define your scope. Say, I want to test what my business looks like from the outside. So that's 3 IP addresses. I also have my core business unit or my head office, and maybe that is 500 employees, associated servers, virtual machines. So let's say 750 IP addresses. We now have a quantifiable scope that we can communicate to the testing companies to say, give me a quote or help me understand what it would cost and timing around testing this. Also go in with a budget. You should be planning on maybe overspending what you're spending on. So again, you get what you pay for. There are independent contractors that will do this for $300 an hour, for $50 an hour, but you want people that have the experience, that have done this before, because this is an important task. This is your business. This is the livelihood of your employees, their children at stake. So plan to budget accordingly for this, because it is a necessary project and it brings a lot of value to the business. I can't tell you how much to budget. It really depends on the size of your organization. But if you took, let's say, a percentage of your overall IT spend and use that as a figure, that would be a good start. And then act. All right, we have results. What do we do with the results? We have vulnerabilities in Active Directory that can be exploited. We have a public website that could be taken over and defaced and cause a lot of challenges. How do we address these issues, and when do we address these issues? This is when you start working with project managers or even a spreadsheet or a Gantt chart where you say, okay, we're going to fix this, then we're going to fix this, then we're going to fix this. And your testing company should be giving you the prioritization of what should be fixed first in a 30, 60, 90 day, 120, 180 day sprint. Because sometimes there's a lot of information that you have to go through, and you shouldn't have to decide what needs to be fixed first. You need that external expertise to tell you what should be fixed, or what the recommendations are to address first based on the overall impact to the business and criticality of the discovered vulnerability. So lean heavily on your partner to help prioritize things. So we now have manageable tasks to work with over the next 30 days. Might feel a little overwhelming, but it really doesn't have to be. I know your time is valuable. My time is valuable as well. And there's a lot on my plate, a lot on your plate, but here's some advice for you. So first and foremost, get support from your executive team. You want to succeed. They need to know that they want to succeed and what this means to the business. So I'm not going to go into financial penalties for NIS2. You can look those up, but financial penalties have proven to be a very good motivator to get executive buy-in. So if that's a tool you want to wield, you can definitely do that. I also recommend blocking off 1 hour per day for the next 30 days for this project. That gives you dedicated, uninterruptible time that you can focus on the first bucket and the tasks associated with it. And really try and hold yourself as best you can to that 30-day bucket. You really don't want things flowing or overflowing to the next bucket, because that means something else has to overflow to the next bucket, etc. You don't want to kick the bucket down the road, because you still have to pick up that bucket at some point to address it. Many hands make light work. Start working cross-functional teams. Enlist the help of other business units, of other teams within your organization to make this work. And this is really dependent on executive buy-in. If the executive team knows that this is a priority for the business, then it becomes a very easy conversation to start working with IT, working with compliance, working with audit, to make sure that you have the resources you need to do this. And also work with your trusted technology partners. You need to share this load, and they're there to help. You know, they have the expertise to do this, and you should lean on them heavily to get you through this 60-day sprint, because October 17th is quick. It will be here sooner than you think, and we cannot count on that date being moved. It would be nice if that's a possibility, but we can't count on it happening. So with that, I wanted to open up for questions, and I also wanted to remind everyone of the 2 webinars, the follow-on webinars for the next 2 buckets that we have, February 29th and April 11th. And you know, should you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question section here in GoToWebinar, or if you have additional questions, you can reach out to me. My email is andrew.hay@demovo.com, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Yes, I've had a look into the Q&A section, and there were some written. The first one that is raised is the question that the company obviously is 27001 certified, and they ask whether they then automatically NIS2 compliant with that.
Not necessarily, and I think that's going to be a common misconception, especially around the needs for incident management and incident reporting. So a lot of organizations are going to have to go back and look at their policies and really their incident response program on if the response timelines and activities align with NIS2. So there may be some updates to their existing policies and programs that need to happen. So you can't just take for granted that, hey, we've been ISO 27001 certified for 5 years. We're pretty sure that means NIS2 is all covered. There are some nuances within NIS2 on reporting and timeframes that need to be considered.
Okay, cool. So then there's another question. It's more practical one. The question is, who should be part of the project team?
I can use my standard lawyer response of it depends. Depends on your line of business. I would definitely include IT because they are going to likely have to do the majority of the operational work, especially in terms of asset management and communicating what tools are already in place to support the policies that we're either writing or updating. The management team, definitely. It's always good to have finance in there in case you need budget approval along the way. Legal should be involved, not necessarily at the onset, but near the end, just so that they are aware of what's transpiring, what's taking place. If you have a compliance or an audit function within the business, I would hope that they have already been banging on your door saying that this is coming and we need to do this. So they should definitely be involved. And customer support, customer success, they need to be able to communicate what is happening to customers should they ask. They also have tremendous insight into how customers are using your company's products or services. So have a representative from that team as well.
So it's a comprehensive one, right?
It's an organizational requirement, and it's going to require organizational participation.
Cool. So Andrew, I think one thing we have forgotten in, I don't know, because you hurried through the presentation, you would like to raise a short poll. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I think we have time. So because now you guys, ladies and lords, have listened to what Andrew said, what kind of activities and requirements are needed to meet the requirements. And therefore, we would like to ask you how far so long you are with the NIS2 journey in your company. And we really appreciate your short voting. I think you have another 5 seconds time to vote.
I still think my favorite option is that we hope to make it in time. Hope is not a strategy.
Oh, you're right. Cool. Do you expected that, Andrew?
I didn't actually. I honestly expected more people to say that we're not ready at all. We hope to make it in time is, I hope that your hope is that you have a timeline in place and a project plan to get all of this accomplished. 10% not affected. That's probably where I expected it to be. Only 5% saying they're done. It's the end of January, so we've already lost a month. So, like I said, that timeline's, those months are going to fly by.
Okay, so cool. I think we are done. No? So we have 1 minute left. When we have more questions in the chat, we would reply to them. No problem. And we really hope that you have enjoyed this session and will continue joining the upcoming sessions. You can scan the QR code there. And for sure, we will send over the recording of today's session and the upcoming. And if you would like to be up to date about Debovo and hot topics, you can follow us on LinkedIn. yeah, that's it. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.